People like games.
What's up, people? It's Solo, and welcome back to A Conversation With. I got on a very interesting guest today, George Yang, freelance games writer. Yin Yang Fui on Twitter. It's going to be right here as a visual somewhere on the picture. So go follow him. He has a bunch of great pieces in different bylines. And so welcome to the show, George. We were just talking before. It's super hot out, but we're gonna manage a convo even in this midst of this heat. And so getting into things, just to sort of start with some softball questions. What game are you playing right now? The last thing you played?
Right now, I'm playing Lost Judgment.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually started it last year when I was reviewing the game before it came out. I did the main story and then also did a few of the side quests, stuff like that, to like prepare for the review and stuff like that. But then I kind of dropped it after I posted the review because I had some other stuff to go through. Because around that time I was also reviewing Tales of Arise, as well as Life is Strange: True Colors. They all dropped in like the same general time period, and so like I couldn't really get like deeper into Lost Judgment, you know. Like,
absolutely.
But I recently went back this like past week to go through and try to get the platinum trophy for the game.
So when you start really enjoying a game like that, but you have like a whole bunch of reviews, does that like change the flavor of having to play games where you know?
Oh yeah.
So then how does that work? Like, does that, if you really like a game, is it like, I don't want to review this so I can play it?
Right. So as a freelancer, I have a lot of freedom in what I want to review and what to play. That's one of the advantages. I imagine if you're like a full-time staff writer out to play, you might get assigned a game to review, whether you're interested or not. Someone needs to review it, right?
Absolutely.
But in my case, as a freelancer, I can deny projects or games that I'm typically not interested in. So I've gotten this question before, like, oh, why are George, why do you tend to score like the games you review? Why do you tend to score them on the more positively, skewed? Like I typically give out like 7, 8, 9, 10s, whatever. Well, I give it out 1 10.
What's the 10 for?
Personally for me, it was The World Ends With You.
The World Ends With You. Okay.
New one. Yeah.
Interesting.
I really love that game. But typically, my review scores do tend to skew on the positive side because these are games that I'm already interested in playing, and I think I have a general good barometer of I can tell by a trailer, like, oh, this could potentially be a good game, or this developer that's working on the game has a good track record. So generally, it's going to be good, in that case. So that's why my review scores tend to be skewed more positively because
you want to be playing those games.
I want to play them, and I generally do enjoy them. And there's definitely a difference between like playing a game for review and then just enjoying it, because with a game for review, you're on a deadline. Yeah. And you never know when, PR or the developer will send you the code, like for example, Elden Ring, right? Lots of people love it. I love it. Elden Ring is great. But we did not, you may have already knew this, but a lot of like us reviewers, we did not get enough time with the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was a trending thing, but that's where I was going to say. So why is there such a need to get it or the release out within 48 hours of the release, or is that part of the process as specific outlets?
Yeah. So generally, I think a lot of just like people don't understand that when you publish reviews actually don't drive a good amount of traffic. Like they don't, like in terms of numbers. Yeah. Like it's just there for like show. Like unless you're like IGN or GameSpot, typically for almost every site, reviews don't pull in the numbers, right? It's like guides or like features, interviews, stuff like that. Reviews don't. They a lot of people, including myself, I admit it. A lot of people just scroll down to the bottom, look at the score, and that's it. That kind of thing. So So when
Is there viewership in the video versions of reviews though, comparatively to the numbers on the
comparatively,
written
I
version?
think video reviews would be better.
Yeah, but then the written versions have a
It's
specific
not so
niche.
much. So if you do publish a review,
Mhm.
ideally it has to be when the review embargo lists.
Mhm.
That is when sites get the most traffic for the review, right?
Okay.
And so that's why there's so much importance of hitting that review embargo deadline, because when that lists, most likely that is the most you'll ever get out of like views of your review.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's something to really keep in mind.
It's a maximizing of clicks. Yeah. So that's another question. We're gonna have some conversation because I know you're pretty smart about journalism and sort of the digital landscape,
Right.
which George had a great interview over on Real Time Strategy, which go take a listen as well.
Yeah.
But now going completely left field, what's your favorite game series of all time?
Series. I really like the Tales series. My wheelhouse is like definitely JRPGs.
JRPGs.
I love JRPGs in general. Tales, Final Fantasy, Persona, those types of games. But I really do play everything. AAA games, indie games. Just really, I really like to broaden my horizon. Yeah. But I will say that like JRPGs are my definitely my favorite.
I'm playing Chrono Trigger for the first time.
The ones that I don't have as much knowledge in are like mostly multiplayer games, like like your like your MMOs, stuff like that. Those type of games aren't typically in my wheelhouse, so I tend to play those.
And so this probably makes basically it would be within the JRPG. Is there a favorite game of all time, even though you only gave Neo a 10?
I get that one.
But is that the favorite game of all time, or is that just the one you've reviewed a 10 to?
That was the only one that I give a 10 to so far, I think. I really like Persona 4 Golden. That's probably my favorite game of all time. I have a really big emotional connection with it. So I would say that's probably my favorite game.
Well, funny enough, that actually falls into two questions. So the next one is gonna be, what's your most sentimental memory with video games?
Well, my sentimental memory.
And then I'm going to add the second question to give you a minute to think as well, because it sort of connects. What is it about video games that make you prefer them to other mediums?
Right, sure. So one really sentimental memory that I do have with video games in particular, when I was in 6th grade, so I really got into Kingdom Hearts when I was younger. And Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, and it was around my birthday too. And so I asked my mom to get me Kingdom Hearts 2, and it came out like 2 days after my birthday, and she actually ended up getting it on eBay for some reason, rather than like a store. But she did manage to get it, and like I distinctively remember, that day. And so that's probably for me, like most sentimental memory. As for why I like video games compared to other like mediums, I think it's the interactivity you get with video games that you really don't get like movies or TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it really kind of puts you into the experience compared to like other things. So I really like that sense of agency, because I think personally for me, I feel kind of lost when I don't have like control over a situation. And in a video game, you do, right? You have the controller, obviously. So I think that part of my personality kind of plays into it as well.
Interesting. That's a great analysis. I never thought about it like that. And then now as like gaming becomes a little bit bigger. And funny enough, Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of my own personal best memories and sentimental versions in gaming as well. But now moving into the games industry, because I'm going to use a little preface so you don't have to always re-talk about things, but you only do part-time freelancing in gaming, right? So it's not your full-time job. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask was, you said you started off doing business. Why did you end up in journalism? And that's a teasing joke because I'm familiar too with the digital media. So I was going to ask you.
So
in the digital age, I grew up through the 2008, to early 2000s sort of death of traditional journalism to the push to digital media when we got all those sort of web blog and sort of miniature websites. And then that went away again. and we moved back into a consolidation form, right?
Yeah, right.
So now for gaming, what was it that sort of made you want to be a game journalist, and how did you get your first position in there, or your first byline, whatever the case?
Yeah. So the first question, so business. So I went to business school. I graduated with a business degree. So in my own experience going through college and stuff like that, so there's two types of business majors, right? They're the ones that are like really into it.
Yeah.
Who go into like, consulting firms and like accounting firms, like the Big Four. Or,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, they go into like PricewaterhouseCoopers or like Deloitte or like Goldman Sachs, that kind
McKinsey's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
They're really into it. They join all the business association extracurriculars at college.
Yeah.
That's the first
That's
type.
funny.
The second type of business major is the one that I am. You're a business major because you know what the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very standard, if you don't know what to do, I mean, you just get the business degree and just work a decent job, that kind of thing. So I fall under that camp, the second type. And so in terms of like my foray into like media and stuff like that, I started off wanting to be a host, kind of like a kind of funny, or like Giant Bomb,
100%.
Those kinds of things, Easy Allies, that kind of thing. So I started like doing YouTube videos, stuff like that, but it wasn't really like hitting. And I realized I really hate editing videos. Oh my God. I really hate it.
It is the worst absolute part of the entire process.
Yeah. So like I got tired of that. And then and I never really thought about going to journalism. But I did apply for a full-time position over at Gamespot about 3 years ago for a video position. And I had no experience at all. So it made sense why they rejected my application. But the person who read my application kind of like, hey, if you want to get into this stuff, you need to do, A, B, and C, stuff like that. You need like a writing background, stuff like that. And so that was kind of like the nudge that I needed to get into like the journalism thing. Again, it wasn't what I intended to do in the first place. So then on Twitter, I was already kind of in the media square, but I didn't really have any presence at all. But then I found I just randomly stumbled across someone advertising like a Discord server of people who wanted to start out in journalism, stuff like that. And I went in there and just chatted with a bunch of folks, and then eventually a month later, I just randomly started a Medium blog. I wrote random opinion pieces. I did 2 or 3. And again, I didn't have an editor. I just wrote it myself. That was okay in my head, so I'll just publish it. That kind of thing. I had no editor. I think if an editor read it, they'd be like, you need to change all this stuff and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, it was just a random, just kind of like a smattering of thoughts.
It's a passion.
And then I did 2 or 3 of those, and then a site opened. A site was looking for some new writers. This one is called Only Single Player. This is an older site. They're under the Enthusiast Gaming banner, right? And I submitted an application. I went through an interview process phase. I only submitted my blog material. That's it. I had 0 bylines at all. But those 2 or 3 blogs eventually, I used them for the application process and it worked. And then so I got the position as a freelance writer at Only Single Player, and I started off writing a few news articles for a year until the site shut down, unfortunately. So then that was kind of my stepping stone into where I am today. So again, it wasn't intentional. I started off wanting to be a host, for media, but then that didn't really take off. So I kind of slowly transitioned my way into writing and journalism, stuff like that. So no journalistic background, didn't go to journalism school, went to business school instead. Ironically enough, business school really teaches you how to write professional emails. So
Yeah,
it
it
does
does.
help when like you reach out to PR requesting like interviews or stuff
Absolutely.
like that. So there's that aspect here. You gotta sound professional when you write emails. So that helps.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening, you don't have to have a background in it. You just have to have a passion and go get your first little bit of a portfolio together by writing anything.
Exactly.
So now this was a couple of years back, and now over the years, you've sort of gained a couple more bylines and a couple more established places.
Right.
Does the industry that you sort of, I know you didn't actually like pursue it sort of in a purposeful manner and accidentally ended up there, but now that you're in it, is it like, hey, I really like this, I could see myself doing it? And is it sort of, as you see the market, and so this is what I was going to talk about, the digital media, it's like there's like this weird bridging now in gaming where in the middle of the pandemic, gaming's popularity shot up exponentially, but the amount of actual publications started shrinking, the amount of cut. Why in your opinion, do you think there was that sort of inverse reaction? Because I'm not as part of it.
Yeah. So I started in 2019, in April 2019, around that time. And then it's funny you bring up the pandemic because that was actually part of the reason why only single player shut down. Only single player shut down in April 2020. So like literally right when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about like why was there like this inverse, right? Gaming shot up, but gaming shut down. Well, the thing is that when we talk about how popular gaming is, it's very it makes a lot of money for like already rich people and like executives, that kind of thing. So and the reason why a lot of publications got hit really hard at the beginning of the pandemic is because a lot of people got laid off, stuff like that. So when people get laid off, they don't have money to spend, right? And so a lot of sites that depend on ad revenue, they got hit by the pandemic because the ad revenue, the advertising is useless if you don't have people spending money to buy, the things advertised, right? And so because advertising hit, sites that depended on, traditional ad revenue took a hit. And so a lot of publications shut down. In particular, one that really hurt. I have no idea if this is actually what happened, like the reason why this site shut down. But you hear ice cream truck, right?
I was gonna say, I was like, is that an ice cream truck?
It comes by every now and then. But yeah, so I don't have any confirmation of this, but I would imagine it played a big part. But US Gamer shut down.
Yes, I remember. That was a sad one because Eurogamer and US Gamer were incredible.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think because of the pandemic, that was part of the reason why US Gamer shut down.
But the ad revenue going to not like the people purchasing anything, but because gaming got so much bigger, wasn't there like a large influx of people interested in gaming content? Like, did the websites not see like a bump in readership, viewership throughout the time period? That's where
yeah, I mean, you would think so.
You would think so.
But I mean, I don't know for sure because I'm not really familiar with analytics. I'm just very like it's like from what I hear and stuff like that. It's like what other people tell me. I don't really have any insight on like actual specific numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also take into consideration, US Gamer and Eurogamer are owned by Gamer Network.
Yeah.
Right. Gamer Network, and then that's owned by Repop. Repop runs like PAX and stuff like that.
Yeah, they bought PAX like a couple of years back.
Right, and remember, PAX had to like shut down and take a break because of the pandemic. So Repop, by extension, didn't have any revenue coming in from conventions. And so that kind of that effect trickled down to the sites.
Yeah.
Which, if I were to make an educated guess, that is part of maybe why, a site like US Gamer would shut down.
And now do you see like, I see a lot of places suddenly have a freelance budget. That's been a running thing that every publication suddenly has. Do you think that now games media publications are seeing a rebound because of, like you said, the packs happen, et cetera?
Yeah. I think freelance budgets are making a rebound. And I do know for a fact that there was a lot of freelance budgets cut during the like the height of the pandemic and stuff like that. But I think with the vaccines and everyone like going back to work and stuff like that, it has been a lot of sites are regaining freelance projects and stuff like that. And then I also do think that gaming is again more popular than ever. And again, I don't know the specific numbers, but it seems like things are relatively more stable than they were 2 years ago. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all anecdotal. So like from what I'm seeing yeah, exactly. It looks like a healthier space, but then that also becomes, do you see now like a split and also competition where before, if you're writing at like IGN, it's a zero sum in some publications mindsets where if it's like, if you're writing for each other, but it's not only you're competing with other institutional brands, you're now competing with streamers because they have their own network of news, etc. Like this weird nebulous media landscape now.
I think maybe 10 years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I think if you were to pit IGN or Gamespot together, I feel like there could be like some hostility there. But nowadays, like we all get along. Like in the written media space, we all get along anyway. We all work with each other. I mean, I write for both IGN and Gamespot on a daily basis. Yeah. And they never, and like neither of them give me shit for it. It's just how we operate nowadays. It's interesting you mentioned like streamers, and also by extension like influencers as well. Yeah. So there's this myth that game journalists get paid by developers, by publishers to give a high score. No, we do not. We do not get paid enough to deal with like harassment, calling us like, oh, Sony ponies or Xbox or whatever the hell you want to call us, that kind of thing.
Stop being annoying Twitter users.
Exactly. So I'm shutting that down now. We do not get paid by Sony at all, or Microsoft at all to give a good score, right? When we give a good score, it's because we genuinely like the game. Yeah. And here's the thing, like if you when you talk about like streamers and like influencers, they actually do get paid.
Bro, I wanted to say this, like when they're doing like all these game reviews and like drops, I'm like, they got paid.
Yeah, so like streamers and like literally then the name influencer. Yeah. Influencers get paid to promote products, okay? And that's fine,
that's fine.
It's fine. It's like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
But there should be an understanding that
it's an understanding because they are an influencer. Like it makes sense that they get paid to promote the product. Exactly. Like that's fine. But did you see that double standard? Yes. They're mad at us for supposedly getting paid when that's not the case. But when like influencers are doing the exact same thing, and then you see people in the comments are like, well, fuck you, IGN, you suck. I'm gonna listen to this influencer talk about Call of Duty, and their opinion is gonna be more right than yours.
Because I think that bias is reversed because it does exist, but then the funniest part is it's because of the language, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Where if you're always like you said, like, hey, if I like a game, then I'll write about it. If I'm just, it's like, hey, I want to go shit on something. No, not really. I don't feel like I need to do that.
Yeah. Nobody wants to write a bad review, right? Just like if I think a game looks good and I want to play it, and then when I actually play it and I think it sucks, well, nobody wants to spend their time playing a shitty game, right? Yeah. And much like writing about a shitty game, right?
You feel bad.
Yeah, I feel bad because I'm shitting on a developer's game I think is bad. I feel like I wasted my time playing the game because I didn't enjoy it, and then I also have to write about it. Yeah, that kind of thing. And, yeah.
So that's a funny one because I was going to ask what is one of the biggest misconceptions about gamers, and I think that one in particular. So then now moving towards just like even in freelancing and then as your own ability to write, if you like specifically just like a genre, do you still have the option of like, are you always still pitching what you want, or do you ever get hit up with, hey, we're thinking of like a couple of pieces and maybe you'd be interested in one of them, or do they not really have a direction, like a couple of pieces? Do you mean
a publication would ask me if I want to review a game, or are you
like
saying,
like
in
they have like thought pieces, right? So they're like, hey, we
Right.
have like a newspaper, we have 5 upcoming investigative pieces we want to do.
Okay.
You know, would you be interested in any of these, or is it usually just we're taking pitches and they don't really have a direct?
Yeah. So it really depends. So in my experience, if you're just starting out, you're gonna have to do a lot of pitching.
Yeah.
Opportunities are not going to fall in your lap at first, and even when you get a lot more experience, they don't necessarily, like, opportunities don't explode all of a sudden and like falling into your lap. You're still gonna have to put a lot of times. You're still going to have to put in a lot of the legwork to outreach. Here's my idea for this coverage or whatnot. Sometimes yes, opportunities do fall in your lap. Like this editor or whatever will reach out to you, without you having reached out to them. A good example of this, actually, I have a lot of good recent examples.
Yeah.
Okay. So recently I did a review for Chinatown Detective Agency.
Yeah, saw that article. The great article.
Yeah. So at first I wanted to review the game. However, the sites that I pitched them to already had a reviewer working on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well then that's it, right? But then the editor, like 2 days later, reached out to me on the same email chain, like, hey, so we actually have an interview opportunity that came into our inbox, and we were wondering if you would want to do the interview with this developer, with the Chinatown Detective Agency developer. Like, sure, I'll take it. So that's one example of that kind of thing, right? So the website is Rock Paper Shotgun. The developer reached out to Rock Paper Shotgun to offer interview opportunities. Then Rock Paper Shotgun reached out to me to see if I wanted to do the interview for the site.
Mm-hmm. Had you written for them before?
Rock Paper Shotgun?
Yeah.
No, that's my first time.
That'd be your first time?
Yeah.
Okay,
So again, it's a byline, right? It's a new byline. So
yeah.
So it's here's the thing. If I never pitched, like, even though I got rejected, even though my review got rejected, that rejection led to another opportunity. If that editor, if I never reached out to the editor wouldn't have known I existed, and I 100%. Never would have done that interview opportunity, right? And then another example of this is my Elden Ring review. So I reviewed Elden Ring for GG Recon. Like I knew this was going to be an uphill battle pitching the review for Elden Ring, because every website is going to keep their
staff
like
writer
the
for a
big
game
triple
like
A games in-house. They're not going to freelance it out, right? Like fat chance, like if you're a freelancer, you are not going to review Elden Ring for IGN, right? It's too big of a game. They're keeping it in-house, like quality control. Like that's totally fine. Don't get me wrong.
100%.
But you have to understand, the context of where to go. And so I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. Every site's going to keep their Elden Ring review in-house. But I managed to land the Elden Ring review at GG Recon. And previously I picked other places like even Rolling Stone. I picked a Rolling Stone, and they're like, no, we don't really cover gaming anymore. I even picked it to CNN. So they have a gaming / tech section.
Yeah.
I knew my Elden Ring pitch would just get rejected from CNN because they don't do game reviews. Yeah. But I might as well just try the off chance that he accepted it, right? And I was right. They did not accept the Elden Ring review. However, 2 days later, maybe not 2 days later, but a few days later, after CNN rejected my Elden Ring review pitch, the same editor reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to take on an assignment for just to do a list of like 20 PC games I recommend. Yeah. And I took it. Right. And that's a byline at CNN. Yeah. CNN, exactly. So rejection is all part of the job. Yeah. Like 100%. You will get the rejection, like plenty of times. I did an interview last year. It got rejected 7 different places until I eventually landed it at another site. But again, rejection is all part of the job. If I hadn't reached out to CNN about an Elden Ring review, even though I knew it was going to be rejected anyway, I never would have gotten that opportunity to do that PC games list with the CNN. Yeah, and then so you just gotta shoot your shot, even though you know it's gonna fail. It could definitely lead to something else.
Absolutely, because funny enough, I was listening in that same real-time strategy interview where you talked about pitching to non-traditional gaming publications, and I thought that was such a great idea. Exactly what you're saying, which is they're going to need people, because now as the rebound occurs for some of this media, everyone wants to get into gaming, right?
Yeah.
And gaming publication, and they're going to separate it from tech. They understand the value of gaming. People love Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Yeah.
And for people who are aspiring journalists, to heed that advice, that's probably the best advice you could ever get, which is be practical and just understand there'll be a lot of no's, but those no's lead to a lot of yeses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you see it. So do you see the New York Times had that big Elden Ring mishap? But that reminds me of like that. Remember way back in the day, they did like a boba tea review that ended up going terrible. It was like the tapioca balls at the bottom. The woman's like,
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a really funny, controversial one. And I remember being like, okay, they shouldn't be reviewing this. But now as they expand into actual reviews and news analysis and jump into competition with the IGNs, the GameStops, do you see readers or users or gamers as a whole sort of going to New York Times and being like, oh, hey, I'd be interested in this opinion? Or are smaller, newer gaming publications still have time to grow? Like, as you have all these different elements of established media, but not gaming media coming in, and then new people trying to establish gaming media outlets. Do you see them all able to coexist? Where, in your own opinion, do you see
So, okay. So this is funny because I think all the websites can coexist.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding like a certain voice for your publication. So that whole Elden Ring thing with New York Times, that caused the whole debacle because here's the thing. So you probably already know this, but and you did mention it, but a lot of established mainstream websites, they don't separate their tech and their gaming section. They lump it all together.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting a lot of like weird articles that don't really understand the gaming industry as much, and I think that's kind of what happened with New York Times with the Elden Ring piece. Like reading it, like there was a line in there that said, like it was something like Elden Ring would have never been as successful if it weren't for the pandemic, and all of us were like, really?
Exactly.
Like Miyazaki, right? Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, hugely successful outside the pandemic. There was no doubt that Elden Ring was gonna explode anyway.
100%. But
like
would a gamer be able to explain that to like who is the audience? Like you said with the voice, like who's the audience as well? The New York Times audience, they're gonna see the Elden Ring review, right? They're not going to read it with the background knowledge of those games and the history of gaming. So now can gaming writers, etc., can they bring it? There's not as many writers in gaming. That's sort of a semi issue to those publications, and understand that, you have to sell this not as talking to someone like us who can understand and just jump around the games, and how basic or how much knowledge do you have to assume the reader or
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a different different thing to tackle, because you also need to understand the audience, right? People who read New York Times are like not too well versed in the gaming. I think with New York Times, what New York Times did was I think they went too far in the direction of they needed to baby, the reader. Like in the Elden Ring article, they literally describe like what a boss at the end of the level was, right? I don't think you need to kind of baby the writer like that, right? You don't need to baby the reader that much. I think with proper context, I think the reader, even if they're not well versed in gaming, they will pick up, what a boss is, at the end of the level. So you're right in the case that more mainstream publications, they might you might need to write a little differently so that the audience understands it. But at the same time, you need to have like a proper games reporter. You need a proper reporter who understands the game industry. It can't just be a tech person just playing Elden Ring.
Yeah,
that kind of
exactly.
thing. It can't a great example of this of what you should do is the Washington Post, right? Launcher. The launcher is Washington Post's games vertical, right? You have Mikhail, you have Gene Park, you have Shannon Liao. You have all of those like seasoned games writers who understand the game industry, but write for a big publication like the Washington Post with launcher. So I don't know why like other mainstream sites aren't basically copying the launcher model, because that is exactly what you need to do in order to establish a an active voice.
Yeah, 100%.
Within a mainstream website like the New York Times.
Do you think you're familiar with The Athletic?
Yes. I did pitch to them once, but they never responded back to me. But
do you think a gaming form of that would work? Do you think, because like the problem is there's a subscription basis to all of the traditional newspapers and publications that have gaming and tech. So now suddenly, would a gamer pay for a subscription to any of those? I don't think so.
Yeah, interesting you mention that, because the Washington Post in general is paywall. The launcher is not.
Yeah.
So maybe, like hypothetically, if the Athletic were to run a gaming section, they could paywall the rest of the Athletic would.
But they wouldn't do gaming.
But the game session wouldn't.
But that's so confusing. I feel like gamers are the biggest like consumers of information related to their shit. What is happening here? I'm like,
I think there is a good basis for a subscription model, because over at The Escapist, they have a thing called Escapist Plus, where readers can actually subscribe for like $4 a month for so when they log in, their own version of the website is ad free. Okay. It's ad free, right? Yeah. And Zero Punctuation, right? The video series. Yeah. So Zero Punctuation, the episodes appear on the website first, and then the week later appear on YouTube.
Okay.
And so if you subscribe to Escapist Plus, I believe, you get access to that week's Zero Punctuation episode
before everybody else.
Right?
It's like the podcast subscription services. Get the episode first.
Yeah.
Before.
So I think what The Escapist is doing there in terms of the subscription is something that I think a lot of sites can also try to replicate.
Yeah.
So I think a subscription thing it can be very helpful. I think it really depends on what you can use to leverage, because Zero Punctuation, very popular. I love this video series. I watch it every week. But it really depends on what kind of content you have.
Yeah.
So again, subscription can work. You just got to figure out a way to do it.
Who the audience is. And I'm curious, because like that was going to be one more where I was going to be like, now just give you a few more questions. It's been almost an hour. I don't want to waste all your time for the day.
Oh, no. I'm free all day. Really. Yeah, I can
too.
Yeah, right, I'm really free all day. You can just kind of fire off until you're tired.
Oh, nice. All right. So then I was going to say, all right. So now, as you yourself, right, you see you're very smart about the economics and the practicality of the industry, right? Mm-hmm. So do you see this and say, okay, I'm going to be freelancing forever? Probably not, right?
Right.
Do you then see it and say, okay, I want to? Where do you see yourself fitting in? Is it, on the business side for strategy? Is it, hey, I want to become an editor? Is it, I want to write just specifically like for you? Because Gene Park's a good a version of that to me, where he sort of runs that version of the launcher. Would it be for a gaming public? What is it for you?
So just to touch on Gene real quick. So
Gene, come on the show. I keep messaging you.
Yeah, he's cool. I like him. For Gene specifically, he I think he and I are similar in the sense that we like the enthusiast part of it.
Yeah.
Like we like doing reviews, we like doing features. On the flip side, you have someone like Shannon over at Launcher. She handled a lot of like the heavier topics, right? Like the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. She recently had a scoop. I think this past week where this one woman accused Epic of not hiring her because she was part of like the union efforts at Apple or some of that. Like,
interesting.
You know, so that was a scoop that Shannon got. So Shannon handled a lot of the heavier topics. And I think I've talked with her before. I think that's what she enjoys doing, you know.
Yeah.
And then Gene, on the other hand, handles like the typical, you know, game journalist, you know, reviews, fun stuff, that kind of thing. So
absolutely.
I fall in line. I think maybe kind of in the middle. Like I have some interest in pursuing the heavier stuff, except I don't have too much experience in that just yet. But I think I may skew a little bit more towards what Gene does, which is like enthusiast stuff, which I really enjoy doing. In terms of freelancing, I definitely don't want to freelance forever. You know,
of course.
One thing so the biggest thing that holds me back from going full-time freelancing is that we don't have healthcare here in the United States, right?
Yeah,
you know,
literally.
our healthcare is tied to our employer,
yeah,
which means that I have to stick with my day job, you know, so I can get benefits, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we had a universal healthcare program, oh yeah, I would quit my job tomorrow, go on that, and then go full-time freelance. So that's like for me personally, the biggest hurdle. And then, but the reality of it right now is that a lot of people are freelancing in the hopes of getting a full-time position somewhere someday, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To get benefits at, you know, work for IGN or.
But do you see a sustainability in it? Because like in the journalism side, right? Because like that's what I had mentioned by the video. Because like I'm a student of journalism myself on the business and the other side, but the specific version goes like now everyone's moving to video, right? And so as someone myself who would have preferred writing but saw the movement towards video, so now I have to do, you know, video to that degree.
Yeah.
Do you see the ability to compete at that scale in the long term through just strictly journalism, or do you think that'll always have to be a core aspect of it for these outlets?
I think there's always going to be a need for writers. Yeah. Right. So I think for a good number of people, I think it could be sustainable. Maybe not like freelancing, you know, because you know, like Netflix laid off their entire editorial arm like this past week. Oh my gosh, that kind of thing. It can really kind of question, like, do I want to stay in this? Right? Do I want to stay in writing? Because you know, you can just get laid off, you know, just like that. Yeah. So I think the focus on making things sustainable, it's a really, really tough nut to crack there. Yeah. With like subscriptions can definitely, like, you know, offer a healthy like safety net, you know, if you need it, that kind of thing. So I think there needs to be you know, some searching there, you know, that kind of thing.
It's like esports where there's no like financially scalable company that exists, right? Where I see it and I'm like, all right, you're here, but you can only go here, right? And even with these medias, I'm like, all right, what can you really do to try to compete with growing this versus what you already have, which is everyone who has a slice of the pie, those exist already, right? There's not a lot of change.
I'm not too familiar with esports, but I've been told by a lot of people that esports companies don't make money.
No, they don't, because where do you make money? Sponsorships, etc. Like if you just look at the revenue lines, you're like, all right, you don't really have much to be able to capitalize on other than now signing, like every streamer has become like a personality streamer, right? But there's no change, right? Do you think there's been a saturation, but that saturation led to stasis where like 2015, 16 and the launch of the Overwatch League, it's like gaming 2.0, right? In my opinion, which is a weird way to put it, but gaming became very more consumer oriented and more mainstream. So from there, you had all these streamers that are currently the big crop that are XQC, and all these people grew up in this ninjas, etc. Pokemon in that time period. But they've been the top people for years now, been maybe 2-3 years, and that's not changed at all. do you see from yourself that, this is moving to a different direction and everyone's looking for something?
I think that it's really important to establish a voice and a brand, because you mentioned like a lot of people need to pivot to like personalities.
Yeah.
Because Taylor Lorenz, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So she spoke on this about needing to kind of establish a brand and like an identity, a personality, because that's how you get a following, right?
Yeah.
If you have a pretty good following, then no matter where you go, like Taylor started off at like the New York Times, and now she's at the Washington Post, and so your voice, your name becomes very powerful. And I think when you talk about like Pokimane, XQC, Hassan Piker, big names, no matter where they go, people are going to follow. And so that's, and again, to bring up Gene again, that's why I think Gene has such a dominant voice.
There's no one else like Gene specifically as a journalist.
I can guarantee you that Launcher or Washington Post or whatever, they're going to do everything in their power to keep Gene at the Washington Post, because he draws in a lot of readers, a lot of numbers. Look, whenever I publish something like real I'm proud of, I literally DM Gene. I'm like, hey, can you just retweet this? And he does, because I know once he retweets it, the like count on my post shoots up by like at least like 50 people. Like, because I know
Rami Ishmael. He's also
yeah.
So I had Rami on as a guest. He retweeted it, just shoots straight up, and it's
exactly they get a lot of engagement.
Yes,
with like their tweets and their articles.
Yeah,
and like that's very powerful. And even like Gene mentioned, like, hey, like he knows that like his tweets like could potentially get more views than like a Washington Post article.
100%.
And so that's why he tweets it out. If he retweets something of yours, it's gonna get numbers.
So I heard, I want to stop you and say, what is your opinion on the fact that Gene spoke with Colin? And I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that, because I haven't been here long enough to like really understand the whole Colin like thing. So I'm like, I saw it. I just saw it and I was like, damn, that's crazy. Okay. And then I just moved on. So don't worry about it. That's more a joke.
I can't answer if you want me to.
No, of course.
Okay.
If you want to.
So this is just my opinion only. Okay. So, at the end of the day, Gene can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
As for what he actually did, which is talk to Colin, I personally don't agree with what he did. But at the same time, it's not so egregious that it's like a cancelable. I don't think he needs to be canceled over it, because that's kind of ridiculous. Again, like I personally would never talk to Colin.
Yeah.
I don't engage with the audience. I don't want to, but that's just my personal basis.
Yeah,
and
100%.
So again, Gene can do whatever the hell he wants. That's none of my business.
Exactly. But it's within the realm of...
Yeah. Even though I don't agree with what he did.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like some people may have kind of
taken it a bit
maybe
far.
Overblown it a little bit, but I also don't want to minimize, their feelings as well. So it's a really tricky situation. In these cases, I tend to, again, just kind of mind my own business.
Yeah, literally.
Do whatever the hell he wants, even though I don't agree with what he did.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I think there is a lot of ways to not have to disagree or not have to agree with everything someone does in this life, and still be like, I still view them the same, so respect them, everything the same. I wouldn't have done it, but like it doesn't change my opinion of you. And I think there was like, and that's where it is for me too, right? I'm like, all right.
And then
Gene's smart, intelligent person. He's not going to go and have a stupid conversation.
Yeah.
Even if he's on that platform.
Yeah, exactly. And personally for me, if like, I don't personally get like offended or anything like that, unless I can tell that there was malicious intent behind like a certain action.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't get that from what Gene did. So there's that as well. But I know there have been other people who have been personally affected by, some people's actions. And in that case, I kind of just want to, it's weird because I don't want to minimize what other people have gone through, but at the end of the day,
life is complex.
Sometimes, it's not my business to go into someone's, personal life or whatever. Again, I just kind of mind my own business, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that is honestly the best way, because like we said in game journalism, it's like it's a super wide space, and even to a degree for myself, I'm like, listen, we got to engage with everybody because life is complex, and if you try to flatten it too much, you end up just not really getting any subtlety. So
and if you don't want to engage with someone, then
you don't have to.
Exactly. I block people who I don't want to engage with, and that's it. I move on with my life.
Exactly. And so now moving to gaming again into the actual version. So now you've seen the market and you sort of see it and you're sort of like, all right, I'm hanging out. Do you have like any interest in doing the video side again? Or is it just like, hey, I want to do writing and I'm just sort of trying to hang on this?
So I think I think as I've gotten more experience with the writing part, I do enjoy a lot more than I did before. I think to the point where I may probably not try video again.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't mind like coming on a podcast like yours,
Of course.
To help, to like just kind of every once in a while, just kind of go in and do everything. Just talk and something like that. Especially since I don't have to edit this podcast right here.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff. I'm fine with.
Yeah.
But who knows? Things can change. Maybe if someone pays me to edit, then sure, maybe I could try it again. But when I first started trying to do videos and having to edit on a Sunday afternoon, I was over it so quickly.
That's how I feel every time I sit down to edit a video, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I just like continue doing it anyway.
Right.
But now moving to maybe two more questions for you, and these are the usual ones. One is our official question we ask every guest. But firstly, to you, what is the definition of a gamer?
A gamer?
Yeah.
For me, a definition of a gamer, I think anyone who has an interest in games. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to kind of gatekeep this medium. Because I think everyone should be able to experience the joy of playing a game, that kind of thing. So if we can kind of keep the walled gardens down, and be more inclusive and accepting of everyone who wants to try a game, I think that can definitely fit into being a gamer.
So are you saying you're a proponent for easy modes, George?
Dude, okay, look.
No, I tease.
Like, I play on easy mode all the time, okay? Especially if I have to review a game, I will play on easy mode.
Yeah.
Unless an achievement or trophy requires me to play on the highest difficulty. I will start on either easy or normal.
Yeah,
I will start there. And if I want to try a harder mode, I will. Final Fantasy. For example, Final Fantasy Origin, right? Here's the thing with Final Fantasy Origin, I had to play on easy mode because Square Enix only gave us 5 days to review the game. So I had to literally blaze through the game in order to finish it, write it, turn in my review before the weekend, because the embargo was Monday morning, and your editor's obviously not going to work over the weekend. And
why don't they do 2-part reviews where you do an initial impressions and then you come back and you finish your article with the further second pack? You know what I'm saying? It solves both questions.
So that depends on the game. That makes sense for like, are you talking about like a review in progress or something like that?
Yeah, so sort of yes and no, where you give, it's like there used to be a writer named Yo. I forget which publication, maybe it's Hot New Hip Hop. I don't know if you're a music fan, but he does something called a first listen review, where it's literally hit the play button and you're writing. Your reviews are literally live, sort of stream conscious. And then you go back later in a week or two and say, okay, now I gave it time. This is my review. So it's, you don't give the in progress version. You give your first impressions off the bat.
Okay.
Like say you say easy, you get as far as you can.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to here and this is my impressions versus, hey, okay, I came back. Your score could change and say, okay, my score went up. Okay. I haven't seen that before.
So we do that for gaming, we do that in the form of like previews and then reviews, right? So for previews, are like first impressions, but it's tricky because they can either be hands-on impressions or hands-off impressions.
Yeah.
Hands-off impressions aren't necessarily, in my opinion, too helpful, because hands-off impressions are literally just watching like the demo on the screen. You're not interacting, like you're not controlling it.
Yeah,
so those aren't entirely helpful.
Yeah.
But previews can be tricky as well, because there's a limit on what you can cover, right? So like I'll give you an example. Like Ghostwire Tokyo, right? So Ghostwire Tokyo, we were given, we were given a hands-off preview back in like January or something like that, and then a hands-on preview like 2 weeks before the game came out, right? So for hands-off preview, we just watched like an extended clip and then read about it. Personally, I didn't think that was too helpful. Personally, but whatever. Yeah. Hands-on reviews, like Bethesda gives you guidelines on like what you can cover, right? So like for
you admit it's like Japanese companies do the same. Japanese publishers.
Yeah. So like for example, like Ghostwire Tokyo, you're only allowed to cover chapters 1 and 2. You are not allowed to talk about this character or this plot point, even if you've gotten that far in the game, right? So some companies will actually give you the full game, and you can play through the whole game. Like if you want, if you can, you can literally play through the entire game before the preview embargo. But you can only write in the context of a preview. You know, like you've only played chapter 1 and 2, even though you played the entire game already, right? So that's what makes it. So that's what makes previews tricky, is because you have limited access. Your example with like the hip hop music or album or whatever, that's different, because when you do the first impression of the album, you have access to the whole thing, and you don't have any restriction on what you can talk about, right? Okay. And here's the thing, and again, this is something strictly related to journalism, but people are not going to come back to read the second review. Like they're not going to, because the game's already out, they've already played it. No, like your later review or whatever, it's not going to get the same numbers,
Yeah, that's what I just like. I mean, is the gaming media like when it's a movie, it makes sense where there'll be like the first 4 days you got to get the review out, otherwise everyone's seen it. Versus games, because they're longer. I can't imagine that everyone who wanted to buy Elden Ring bought Elden Ring within the first 48 hours. And there wasn't someone like me who's on the fence, and I'm like, let me see what everyone's saying about this, and that could be a process. Yeah,
it's a really tricky thing to nail down.
Yeah, games media is a weird place.
I don't have the answer to that. It's a really tricky thing. We're all kind of shackled to the Google SEO gods, unfortunately.
I was gonna say forever stuck to that. All right, so now getting our last question in here. This is a classic that we like to ask every guest. What is one cartoon, book, animated series, comic, etc., whichever it is, that you'd love to see adapted into a video game?
It's weird, because like my first thoughts are like, has this been adapted video game yet? And then some are like, wait, maybe this already have. So
we've heard Batman Beyond before. Someone said Ed, Edd n Eddy. Someone said Avatar.
I mean, if you're talking about like Avatar, like the blue people, you know,
No.
Ubisoft
Avatar,
is,
the
like the Last Airbender,
the America.
Platinum Games did a game on that. That's really interesting. It's tough to say because I actually don't really read too often, or actually watch movies all too often. Besides like MCU stuff, I'm a total fucking noob at like other forms of entertainment outside of games. This is really tough. Honestly, I don't have a too good of an answer. Maybe like a Venom focused game, because like I really do like Venom, like as a character, not like Ed Hardy Venom, but like
the original Eddie Brock Venom.
Like Venom in general as a character, I really like. Hopefully, maybe one day get like a focus game on Venom or something.
One anime that should be a JRPG.
Oh gosh.
And even if it's been made, it hasn't been made right, so they need to make it properly.
Yeah, anime. Oh gosh. Anime that needs to be a JRPG.
I could feel like
anime that needs to be a JRPG.
If you made a Cowboy Bebop game the same way they made Guardians of the Galaxy game,
that'd be a good idea. This is a really tough one. I'm actually going out on a limb here. I don't think there's been a proper Superman game.
Ooh.
But I think when you talk about like Dragon Ball, stuff like that, I think a lot of like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z mechanics could work well with a Superman game.
Yes. Do you not play Kakarot though?
I did briefly, but I never went back to it. I didn't go that far into it.
I haven't played it yet.
But I've heard Kakarot is like a good basis on what like a Superman game could potentially be. But yeah.
Superman and Dragon Ball.
And then also like this is kind of related, but not really. But so I'm actually not too well versed in like fighting games, unless it's like Smash Brothers or something. But I love Arc System Works and like the Guilty Gear series.
Yes.
Not as like the games themselves, but I love the art style for Guilty Gear. You know, like if I could have a JRPG in like the Guilty Gear art style, that'd be great. Especially since I don't play like I don't really play fighting games.
Fighting games are a bit repetitive to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really
no
depends,
disrespect to anybody. It's always an opinion thing, but like I play it and I'm like, in the first like couple of hours, but it's like sports games. I love sports games.
Yeah.
But they get repetitive. But I'm not part of a community, and the best times to play those games is when you're playing multiplayer. And so if I'm with friends, fighting games are great. But because I don't have a lot of friends, then I don't have fighting game friends. Yeah. So fighting game community.
And also fighting games have a pretty, I mean, depending on what the game is and who you fight, they sometimes have a pretty high barrier because it takes skill to be good at a fighting game. So there's also that hurdle to overcome.
Absolutely. But that's funny. But all right. So that was pretty much a very long conversation interview.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. That was awesome. And so folks, his Twitter is right here. This is George. Go show some love.
Yeah.
Go subscribe and go read his articles. We'll be sharing it on PLG.
Yeah.
Adios.
Bye everyone.